Most actors spend their entire lives trying to break into Hollywood. It's the dream factory, the place where careers are made and broken, where fame and fortune are handed out to the lucky few who manage to survive the system. But what if you didn't need it? What if you could become one of the world's most respected actors, build a legendary career, and still walk away from Hollywood every time it came calling? That's exactly what Mads Mikkelsen did. He didn't start acting until his 30s. He never chased stardom, never cared about building a brand, and yet somehow he became the villain of Casino Royale, the scientist who designed the Death Star in Star Wars, and the sorcerer who fought Doctor Strange. Hollywood gave him its biggest franchises, but they were never the roles that defined him. Because the truth is simple. Mads never needed Hollywood. It was Hollywood that needed him. This is the story of the actor who rewrote the rules and proved that the system doesn't make the star makes himself. He was never meant to follow the Hollywood path. Born in Copenhagen in 1965, Mads Mikkelsen didn't grow up dreaming about red carpets or movie stardom. He dreamed about movement. First gymnastics, then dance. At 18, he was recruited into a ballet academy in Sweden, and soon he was touring Europe as a professional dancer. For nearly 10 years, the stage was his world. It was there he met his wife, Hannah, and it was there he learned how to communicate entire stories without words. But even as he mastered the physical demands of dance, Mads realized what truly fascinated him wasn't the elegance. It was the drama. He wanted to act. That impulse might have remained just a fantasy, if not for his older brother, Lars. A few years earlier, Lars had already shifted from theater into acting and found success on Danish television. Watching his brother carve out a career in storytelling gave Mads a model, proof that it was possible to reinvent yourself. At the age of 30, when most actors are already established, Mads started from scratch. He enrolled in drama school, choosing uncertainty over comfort, driven more by instinct than by a plan. And then, almost immediately, fate intervened. A young director named Nicholas Winding Refn was casting his first feature, a gritty street-level crime film called Pusher. Mads auditioned, landed the role of Tony, and stepped onto a film set for the first time. The movie was raw and unpolished, but his presence was undeniable. With no strategy, no Hollywood dream, he had stumbled into a performance that would define Danish cinema of the 1990s. From the beginning, it was clear, Mads Mikkelsen wasn't chasing fame. He was chasing the story. And that made all the difference. The impact of Pusher was immediate. What was meant to be a small Danish crime drama exploded into a cult hit, launching both Nicholas Winding Refn and Mads Mikkelsen into the spotlight. And while many newcomers would have used that momentum to search for international roles, Mads stayed home. He wanted to explore characters that felt strange, raw, and unpredictable. Through the late 1990s and early 2000s, he became Denmark's most versatile actor. In Bleeder, he played a lonely video store clerk whose awkwardness mirrored Refn himself, a role he shaped with brutal honesty. In Flickering Lights, he revealed a surprising comedic side as a gangster hiding out with his crew. Then came Open Hearts, where he portrayed a doctor whose affair with a patient's fiancée left audiences devastated. Each performance was different, but all carried the same intensity: quiet, grounded, and utterly human. By the early 2000s, he was no longer just an art house name. On Danish television, he starred in the police drama Unit 1, which became a national phenomenon. At its peak, nearly half the country tuned in every week. Awards followed, cementing him not only as a critical darling but also a household name. What made this rise remarkable was how deliberate it wasn't. Mads wasn't plotting a global breakthrough. He wasn't chasing agencies in Los Angeles. Instead, he kept choosing roles that interested him, no matter how offbeat. Even shaving his head to play a small-town butcher who accidentally becomes a cannibal in The Green Butchers. It was strange, it was funny, and it was unforgettable. By the time Hollywood finally came knocking, Denmark had already claimed him as their biggest star. And Mads had already proven a simple truth. He didn't need the system to validate him. He had built his own. Hollywood eventually came calling. In 2004, Mads was cast in King Arthur, playing Tristan, one of the Knights of the Round Table. For most European actors, this was the dream, the door into big-budget filmmaking. But for Mads, the experience was more curiosity than ambition. The film underperformed, yet it left him with two things: his first taste of the Hollywood machine and a friendship with fellow actor Hugh Dancy, who would later prove important in his career. Then, just 2 years later, came the role that would change how the world saw him: Casino Royale. The reboot of James Bond needed a villain who could stand toe-to-toe with Daniel Craig's grittier, more grounded 007. Mads delivered Le Chiffre as cold, calculating, and quietly terrifying. He didn't shout, he didn't overplay, but every look at that poker table carried menace. Critics and fans alike agreed. It was one of the best Bond villains in decades. Overnight, Mads Mikkelsen became an international name. For most actors, this would have been the turning point, the moment to move permanently to Los Angeles, chase franchises, and cash in on fame. But Mads wasn't most actors. Instead of riding the wave, he returned to Europe. In films like Flame and Citroën and Valhalla Rising, he took on roles that were smaller, stranger, and infinitely more challenging. To him, Hollywood had offered visibility, but the work that fed his soul was still back home. It was a choice few would dare make, stepping away from the system just as it embraced him. Yet it defined his career. Mads didn't need Hollywood to prove himself. If anything, Hollywood needed him to remind audiences what authenticity looked like. Walking away from Hollywood didn't slow him down. In fact, it set the stage for the greatest performances of his career. By 2012, Mads was no longer chasing international recognition, but it came to him anyway. That year, he starred in 2 films that both went on to be nominated for the Academy Award for Best Foreign Film, a rare accomplishment that highlighted just where his best work truly came from. In A Royal Affair, he played Johann Struensee, a German physician who secretly influenced the unstable King of Denmark while falling in love with the Queen. It was a lush historical drama, one of Denmark's most expensive productions. But what grounded it was Mads himself. With quiet authority and restrained emotion, he carried the film, drawing critics to call him mesmerizing. But if A Royal Affair proved his elegance, The Hunt revealed his soul. Here Mads played Lucas, a kindergarten teacher whose life unravels after a young girl falsely accuses him of abuse. The role could have invited melodrama, shouting matches, desperate breakdowns, but Mads chose silence. Pain radiated not from speeches, but from his eyes, his posture, the slow collapse of a man abandoned by his community. It was devastating to watch, and unforgettable. The impact of The Hunt was enormous. The film traveled across festivals worldwide, introducing Mads to audiences who had never heard of Danish cinema. Critics placed him among the greatest actors of his generation, praising his ability to make restraint more powerful than any outburst. For many viewers, this was the first time they realized that Mads Mikkelsen was not just a European star, but a world-class performer. The performance earned him Best Actor at Cannes and cemented his reputation as one of the finest actors in the world, regardless of language. More importantly, it proved a point. The roles that defined Mads weren't in Marvel or Bond, but in the intimate, harrowing stories told back home. While Hollywood created blockbusters, Denmark gave him masterpieces. After The Hunt, Hollywood finally seemed ready to embrace him. But true to form, Mads didn't dive headfirst into the system. Instead, he dipped in and out, taking what interested him and leaving the rest behind. His biggest breakthrough in the English-speaking world came not in film but on television. In 2013, he stepped into the shoes of one of cinema's most iconic villains, Hannibal Lecter. Following Anthony Hopkins' legendary performance was a near-impossible task, and at first Mads hesitated. But showrunner Brian Fuller promised a different vision, not a monster in a cage, but an elegant, seductive predator hiding in plain sight. The result was stunning. Over 3 seasons, Mads delivered a Hannibal that was still and unreadable, charming and terrifying at once. Critics called it a reinvention, proof that he could take an untouchable character and make it his own. The series became a cult hit, and for many American viewers, it was the first time they truly saw what Mikkelsen could do. From there, Hollywood came calling with its biggest franchises. He fought Benedict Cumberbatch in Doctor Strange, brought quiet heartbreak to Rogue One as Galen Erso, and later stepped into the shoes of Grindelwald in Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore, refusing to mimic Johnny Depp and instead grounding the character with cold realism. These roles brought him global fame, but they rarely gave him the depth he craved. For every blockbuster villain, there was a part of him itching to return home. And he did. In 2018's Arctic, Mads carried an entire survival drama almost without dialogue, delivering a performance built on silence, endurance, and raw presence. Then came another round, which reunited him with director Thomas Vinterberg. What began as a dark comedy about drinking turned into an exploration of grief, friendship, and rediscovering joy. Mads improvised the now iconic final dance, drawing on his ballet past, and the film went on to win the Oscar for Best International Feature. In Riders of Justice, he swung in the opposite direction, a revenge-fueled soldier balancing tragedy with absurd dark humor. Both films confirmed what critics already knew. His greatest work still came from Denmark. This balance became his signature. In Hollywood, Mads added prestige to blockbusters. Back home, he redefined what cinema could do. He wasn't choosing between the two. He was proving that he could belong everywhere, on his own terms. For Mads, the attention that came with Hollywood blockbusters never changed him. Fame was always something distant, almost irrelevant. In interviews, he often shrugged at the idea of celebrity, saying, "I forget I'm famous every time I step out the door." I think it's a healthy approach. It wasn't false modesty. It was his philosophy. He never cared about building a brand or climbing the Hollywood ladder. What mattered was the role itself. If the part wasn't worth doing, no amount of money or exposure could make him chase it. That attitude turned him into something rare, an actor who was both inside and outside the system. Hollywood could call on him to elevate a villain, but he didn't need its validation. His best work happened when he followed his instincts, whether it was a near-wordless survival story in Arctic or the strangely moving chaos of Another Round. The latter proved just how far his instincts could take him. A dark comedy about drinking turned into a global phenomenon, winning the Oscar for Best International Feature, and ending with a dance scene that has already become iconic. It was the perfect symbol of Mads himself, disciplined, physical, and unexpectedly joyful. And then came Riders of Justice, which showed the other side of him. Brutal yet tender, tragic yet absurd, the film balanced revenge and comedy in a way that only Mads could anchor. By this point, it was undeniable. He had become one of the most respected actors of his generation, not because of Hollywood, but because he never let Hollywood define him. His legacy is clear. He began as a dancer with no plans to act. He became a household name in Denmark, then a cult figure worldwide, before Hollywood finally embraced him. But unlike so many before him, he never surrendered to the machine. He chose art over fame, story over spectacle. From mute warriors to grieving fathers, from seductive cannibals to broken teachers, he proved that greatness doesn't require Hollywood's stamp of approval. If anything, it was the other way around. Hollywood needed him. His presence, his gravity, his ability to make even the smallest role unforgettable. Mads Mikkelsen never played by the rules of the system. And in the end, that's why he outlasted it. He didn't need Hollywood. Hollywood needed him.